It was so nice. I thought I'd play it twice. Listen, here's the reality of it. It's Sunday, and there's things that we need to talk about. And one of the things that we need to talk out right out the gate is the fact that it's Sunday, and I'm sitting here with the lovely, the energetic, the ever popular, charismatic pugilist from across the pond, my friend and yours, none other than the dashing Steve Swift. How are you doing today, brother?
I thought you were going to say he's not turned up, so here's Steve Swift.
That's right.
We've got, because he's always available. He's not doing anything. I'm all right. It's Sunday. It's Sunday afternoon where I am. It's Sunday morning where you are, isn't it?
Yeah. Getting ready to go into the afternoon, thankfully, and a lovely day. A fantastic day. When I'm done doing all of this stuff, I'm probably going to spend a little bit of time outside.
That sounds good. I spent some time outside as well. And I've been lounging on the couch ever since. Oh. And tonight I have a gig.
Good for you. Good for you.
Apparently so. Apparently it's good for me. You say that.
Well, you know who else probably has a gig tonight that they could probably get to? It's Boots Ennis. Did we watch this thing last night? Man, listen, I will be the first one here, Steve, to say thank you, Boots Ennis. Thank you for turning up finally, because we have said in the past, I'll be the first to admit it, I've said in the past that I don't think that Boots Ennis is performing up to the best of his abilities. We've said this, and that's not a knock. That just means that he needs to perform better. And last night, did he ever? In a unification fight, what did you think of this fight, first of all? Because it wasn't very long.
No, it's a strange one, isn't it? And I can't think whether, I mean, for those who haven't seen it, spoiler alert, Follux, but I think that, well, I don't know whether there was an issue with Stanionis, because he was ready to go out for that 7th round, and it was waved off by his trainer, by his team. So I don't know if there was an issue, but he was just getting peppered a little in that 6th.
That's what the issue was like he was already starting to get touched up a bit. It was almost like he didn't fight, because I've seen Stanionis fight before, and this seemed like he didn't show up for this one. He became a punching bag.
Yeah, but that's harder when you've got someone who is so unconventional as far as their movement goes, as Boots, And I thought he had some success, Stanionis. As you say, somebody's always got to go and all that. And as you say, he isn't usually a punching bag. It's not Bum of the Month Club or anything like that. Titleist. And I thought he had some success. But I think when you hit someone and they return a punch with 10 times as more pep and relish and sauce on it than yours, I think you probably think, oh, is it going to be that kind of fight? It was.
And then that sixth round where he was getting beat up. You could see that it was coming. And his trainer, who I think was probably standing on a stool when he was talking to him in his ear, because that is probably the smallest human being in the corner I think I've seen. When it started, I was like, is that somebody's kid? Have they got somebody's kid in there? But no. Anyways, they literally, you could see in between rounds, he's whispering in his ear, like, you've done great. You're a warrior. Nobody's ever questioning that, but I'm going to stop this. And that, in my opinion, was the right decision, because it wasn't getting any better for him.
No, and I think if you do that early and you think, I don't think you have the skills to do this today, because Boots, as you intimated earlier, Boots absolutely turned up. Yeah. The right time to do it. And I think that the look on Stanionis' face at the end of that 6th, when he stood and watched Boots Ennis walk back to his corner as if to say, I don't know what this is. It wasn't a kind of bombastic, next time I'll get you. It was a sort of, I really don't know what this is, because actually you've worked the body, you've hit a superb uppercut, you've got through. I've got through a bit, and I blocked some of your shots, but it's still driving me back. I think that's the right decision. You're correct.
100%. And now I hope that we can start to get a little bit more volume, a little bit more regularity out of Boots Ennis fighting. I want to see this Boots Ennis fight more because certainly, that division needs it in a big way. I mean, 147 it's a bit of a log jam right now, right?
Yeah. Well, we've been waiting, as you say, for Ennis to really become a preeminent fighter, and he did so last night.
Now think about this weight class. Think about that weight. And think about who we've got a fight coming up that is so. I'm going to throw this out there for you, Stephen. Tell me what you think of this marquee lineup for next year. Jerome Boots Ennis versus Ryan Garcia.
That's really tasty because they're both at it, and and they're unconventional in their approach. So I think, Ryan Garcia outside the ring, plus inside, that will be a fantastic fight. That's a fight for the ages.
That moves the needle.
Yeah.
I think it's something that we see. I honestly think it's something that we see. I think that what they're setting up now, and we're going to get into this in a second with our topic this week, but I think that something that's going to happen, not that I'm Kreskin, but let's say this whole thing that they're trying to set up between Ryan Garcia and Devin Haney isn't going to pan out. I think that somewhere along the line in this, Devin Haney is going to end up falling to the wayside on all of this thing. And I think that Ryan Garcia is going to have to move on. And I think that Ryan Garcia fighting Boots Ennis moves the needle. Ryan Garcia does his stuff on the outside and the fight sells itself, man.
Yeah, I don't think that the Devin Haney thing, because of all the stuff around it and all the bad blood and all of that, I think there's too much of that. It's almost as if it's done. It's almost as if we've had that. So, we don't need another fight, actually, because we've already had the fight outside the ring. So people are less interested. Well, I am. I say people. I mean me. But, but that's people.
We're the ones that talk shit about it. So, whatever. What are we going to do, right?
May I also just say I noticed that someone wrote Ascot's forever.
For life.
For life. There you go. So thank you. Yes, yes. Now I know they're called Ascots in the US of the A, and possibly in Canada as well. But here they're called cravats.
Oh, well, that's kind of weird because I don't know. You are a music guy, and I'm going to sidestep here for a very quick second because there's a band that I know that I listen to that quite nice. They're called the Upper Crust. I don't know if you've ever heard of the Upper Crust. They are quite the gimmick. They wear powder wigs, and they do the whole thing. And they have an album called "Got My Ass Caught in My Dickie." They're quite good. Look them up, Steve. You love music. You love doing that stuff. Please, the Upper Crust. Have fun.
Yes, an ascot and a dickie would be far too much, I suspect.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm
you
saying.
You don't want your ascot to cover your dickie. You want your dickie to stand proud and to be shown in society. So you don't want an ascot on top of that.
I think at some point you have to drop the IE off of it, though. It's like going from like Bobby to Robert. Dickie just sounds a little too childish for me. I'm just saying.
If anybody was going to drop the IE off, it would be you.
100% at the bus station. Here you go. Now, listen, we got a topic this week that we were talking about, and it's boxing's biggest letdowns. And that's only because we have such high expectations from some of these people. We decided, okay, let's talk about this. Let's get into it. Because there's some out there that were like, holy smokes, this should have been bigger and better than it actually was. And there's some that is just kind of like maybe they got aged out or maybe circumstances didn't work out for them the right way. But some of the ones that we've picked here are unbelievable. Let's get into it right now, Steve, if you will. This is somebody that you had on your list that I agree with wholeheartedly. Audley Harrison. In the world of heavyweight boxing, this guy should have been a lot more than he really was. I know this was one of your picks. Please tell me what you know about Audley.
In the British press, and I don't know if it went across the pond, he was known as Ordinary Harrison.
Okay.
Because he was, and yes, you're right. We love boxing, and because we love boxing, we have a real. We want it to do well, and so when we see, an Olympic champion looks fantastic, I mean, that picture of him shows he's put together well. You expect that he will be brought on slowly, and that he will be in the title picture, and he had a lot of opportunities, Audley, and the feeling was, you see, that's the issue in boxing. The feeling was, and it was the feeling in the press about this gentleman, he didn't really have the taste for it. This is what we've got with AJ, isn't it, at the moment? You don't have the taste. And that comes into a kind of, you don't have the cojones for this. You're not tough enough for this. So that was the kind of feeling with Audley Harrison. Very lucky, big punch. We spoke last week about a last second punch that it might have sprot that it put him out, and that was, I mean, wonderful to watch because he was behind on in that fight. He just didn't give us what we needed, but that's our fault in a way because we expected so much.
Do you think this popped into my head, and it seems to be that there is something to it in the fact that British boxing, British heavyweight boxing, has a real issue with, over the years, having these superhero looking human beings that don't really want to fight. I mean, we're going to bring his name up again. Frank Bruno, a perfect example of that. Audley Harrison, a perfect example of that. But then you had the other side of Audley Harrison at the time, right? Who, David Haye, who we're also going to get into. Those two seem to look so much alike. We can't exist in the same stratosphere, it seemed like. And that became a real problem as well. I also think because, if I'm not mistaken, wasn't Audley Harrison, wasn't he the guy that BBC was putting, but they were going to get into boxing. BBC was going to do boxing, and they put everything on this guy basically to do that, right? Am I wrong?
No, you're right. And there was a feeling that there was already a coronation taking place. The BBC is the British Broadcasting Corporation. So it's a bit tarnished at the moment, but the feeling is that is our news. That's where you go. And yes, they put a lot of time and effort into a gentleman who we thought, that kind of turns people's view on, oh, he's getting all of that, is he? Oh, you're expecting he's going to win, so you're putting all that money behind it. And you're right with David Haye. The feeling with David Haye is, I'm the streetwise, from the street fighter. I'm the battler who's got a lot of yap. I've got a lot of chat. Audley Harrison never had that. He never had the chat, and you need it in boxing.
Because if you don't, we saw what happened. Audley Harrison gets over into North America and ends up having to face a young 27-0 Deontay Wilder, who could very well be on this list as well. Some would make that argument because Deontay Wilder, not a guy who came up in boxing ranks, but should have been, a lot more than what he really was based on it. But all he had was one shot. And I say this in the past because there's rumors that he's going to be coming back and stuff like that. So we'll see. But I don't believe that he's learned how to box.
No, this is another, you're right. This is another comeback or disappointment. And I feel, one feels, perhaps others feel, that we gave him the kudos and then he proved us wrong. That's even worse. So if you say, oh, great fighter, look at the fights against Tyson Fury, great fighter, bronze bomber, all that kind of stuff. And then the wheels fall off and you think, he's just made me look a fool. So there's that as well.
Yeah. Now, we just spoke about him. Let's talk about him a little bit here. David Haye. I mean, and you can see from the picture, here's another guy who, beautiful looking specimen of a human being in the boxing realm. And this is what Britain seems to do. They put these types of heavyweight fighters out there. It's either this or it's, some little small mangler who looks like he's just going to kick you in the shins all day at the pub. What are we doing here, Steve? Tell me about David Haye.
This is a different matter entirely because, yes, David Haye, slightly different. So David Haye, culturally more aligned than Audley Harrison, who's kind of, Audley Harrison's more culturally aligned to AJ. So AJ is a nice bloke. He's a nice guy. David Haye, you thought you could be at it, mate. And, linked to rap and linked to coming up from the street and all of that. And also smart mouth. Good looking, smart mouth.
Just say what it is, Steve. He's a light-skinned brother. The other guys were dark-skinned brothers. And you know as well as I do that marketing was much easier for a David Haye. Now, I don't care who you are, what kind of athlete you are, you end up with a torn Achilles, that's going to do damage to your career no matter what.
Yes, go on, give us a bit more of this.
Now, that compounded with the fact that David Haye's mouth would get him into more trouble than anything else doesn't lead to really getting any of those big fights. David Haye always came off as a big mouth to me. You know what I mean? Just a big mouth. And I wanted to see him lose every single time. And that's what I need.
Yeah, you set that up, don't you? You set it up if you're smart mouthed. And the thing is, let us not forget, unless I'm very much mistaken, I'm sure you'll correct me if I am, this is the gentleman that put down the behemoth Valuev. So this is the gentleman who found out how to beat Valuev. This is the gentleman who did that. At the time when we all said, well, we're not quite sure how you're going to do that. How are you going to get to the man? You'll need a step ladder. Mm-hmm. He did that. But there was a pitiful excuse as to why he didn't turn up for his title fight.
That, along with back-to-back losses to Tony Bellew, really is what made him kind of go, what am I doing here? Because Tony Bellew, as good as he was, didn't look anything like a David Haye. Tony Bellew, who, like, if his eyes were any closer together, you'd swear he was a cyclops. You know what I mean? But he came and he looked like the plumber or coming out, right? But he put it on him. And you realized, oh, David Haye doesn't want to be here.
No, absolutely. And the thing is, talking of the smart mouths, what you've got is the London versus the Liverpool. Now they've both got, that's the London lip and the Liverpool lip. Now on the Louisville lip, Bellew can really talk a load, and so could David Haye. So, Bellew wants to get down and dirty when he talks. David Haye's got more of that kind of silky smooth chat. Sure. But note that we're not really talking about his boxing. And we're also not talking about David Haye's sore toe. Such a bad sore toe. I had such a sore toe, I couldn't win against the Klitschko. That was something that made us go, what?
You know what it was? He had gout. He had gout from eating horse meat, probably. I'm say probably. Because I don't need letters. But we're of the age, we know what gout is, and we know how it can affect your big toe. I wouldn't want to be in there boxing with gout either. But you're not going to tell the press, I had too much steak over the past week, a couple of ciders pounded back, and I got gout. Who's pulling out? Like, the promoter's going to be like, there's millions and millions of dollars on this, and we're going to fucking let this happen because of gout? Shut up.
I mean, there should be a little asterisk at the bottom, just after his loss, that says lost by cider.
Right?
now listen, Tidster. He sent us a picture. He sent us all a picture of his discolored toe. So that's absolutely correct. So it meant that he couldn't push off at all, and that meant that he couldn't do anything. Just didn't turn up. And that was such a letdown for everybody who was actually in his corner at the time.
Yeah. And this is what happened. This is what happens when you don't show up.
But the thing is, by that time, you're thinking, well, it's probably done for me now. You know, that was the apex, and I wasn't really there for it. So actually, what am I doing now? It's called the Joe Joyce situation. What shall I do now? You know, oh, I've got this fight. Well, I'm not really feeling that. That's also what happens when you're not really feeling a fight.
100%. Now, talk to me about Kirkland Lang. Kirkland Lang is, in my opinion, one of the saddest stories in the world of boxing, simply because Britain, a lot of Jamaican immigrants there, a lot of Jamaican immigrants that have found really good success in Britain. Kirkland Lang, one of these guys. I mean, you look at him, he is the picture perfect Jamaican, British, we could make some money off this. And then all of a sudden, Kirkland Lang realizes what? Go ahead.
Well, first of all, let me say, well, he realizes that with success comes other things that are linked to that success. That is thought to be, and I don't think there's much dispute on this, his downfall. This is a man who beat Roberto Duran, folks. This is a man who did that. Oh, yeah. So, you know, that's such a disappointment to say, well, actually, you know, and layoffs and all of that, and enjoying the life. You know, we had the same thing, allegedly, I'll say allegedly, with John Ponte, you know, who was a champion and then was in newspapers, in nightclubs and all of that. And this was a situation for Kirkland Lang, who sadly passed quite a few years ago now. But it never fulfilled his promise because of the things that you can be offered in boxing and when you're famous.
And here's the thing. I mean, partying got to him. There's no doubt about it. You looked at him later on and you were just like, whoa. And it was one of these stories. There's a documentary out about him. There's all kinds of stuff out there. It's fantastic. You live there. You probably see a lot more of it in the news and in the writings and stuff like that than, say, people, you know, like myself who live in North America. But there was always the, like, because of how Kirkland Lang died, right? Like, did he do it himself? Was he pushed? I mean, we're talking about this, a man who fell off of his balcony. And that's how it happened. I think in 2003, 2004, 2003, I think it was, right? Which is always kind of weird. But you think about the lifestyle that he was living at the time. This may go down. This may go down as one of the biggest letdowns because you get a win over a Roberto Duran at where Roberto Duran was at the time, and you don't capitalize on it.
Yeah. Also, you know, I mean, it wasn't as if, well, you were in there and got a lucky punch and put him down. That was it. He had so much talent, and the general feeling, if I remember rightly, you know, in the British press, which is a nasty vituperative situation at the time, isn't that sad? Is it, you know, nobody was, I mean, press loved to do that stuff, but there was a feeling of, isn't that so sad? Because he was such a talent.
And the funny thing is, I mean, not that it was funny or anything like that, but this seems to be an ongoing thing in the world of sports with young guys, because you look at the window of opportunity is at such a young age. Now, all of a sudden, they're thrown into that limelight. Here's a bunch of money. Here's a bunch of girls. Here's a bunch of drugs. Here's a bunch of alcohol. Here's a bunch of gambling. Here's a bunch of debauchery. And they've got no handlers, right? This is what I think you see a lot of times in this and a lot of these stories is because there's not enough handlers around. Now, speaking of somebody who needed handlers, I'm talking about this guy right here, Andy Ruiz Jr. What an awful disappointment, because Andy Ruiz Jr. has more talent as a boxer than most guys in that heavyweight division. Andy Ruiz Jr., in my opinion, has two things against him. One is metabolism, obviously, right? And genetics. So maybe three things. And the other one is his inability to stay focused because of the people around him, I think. I mean, we all saw Andy Ruiz Jr. was giving absolutely no respect whatsoever. Here comes this short, fat, dumpy. We're going to throw him in here against, Anthony Joshua, the Adonis of boxing, not to be confused with Adonis Stevenson, but that's another story altogether. And Andy Ruiz does the unthinkable. And then nothing. Then gets a comeback. Then looks horrible. Then it sits out for a long time and then comes back against big baby Jarrell Miller and looks even worse again. And you're like, what happened here? Where did the wheels fall off, right?
If you don't capitalize, then, as you say, you have a very short period to capitalize. And if you sit out, then that's the problem, isn't it? Because at the time, I think that Butterbean got more respect than this man.
Yeah.
So I mean, people said that against AJ, just lucky. Well, it's in the same way that Daniel Dubois was lucky against AJ. Right. No, outfought him, in my view. Great performance, took AJ by surprise, absolutely. But you've got to use that if that's what's coming out of people's mouths. If that's what's expected, you use that. It's that layoff. Plus, he never saw a barbecue or a smorgasbord that he didn't like.
And after winning the belt, after winning, that fight against AJ or whatever, it was like, I'm the champ. I don't have to do anything. I didn't have to work to keep it. And it showed, because when he came back, you were like, oh, bro, did you just wear that to restaurants to get free meals? Like, what the hell what happened? Right?
It's the Buster Douglas syndrome, isn't it? Buster Douglas was a different matter entirely, but that's the same thing, isn't it? I've made my money, and the feeling is, well, I've made my money, and actually I've had my time. I don't think I'll get another chance. I might as well just use it for this short period between fights. It's not as disappointing with Buster Douglas, because he's not going to keep that belt. With Andy Ruiz Jr., you thought he could keep that belt, and that's really unfortunate. That it's a long game, isn't it? And sometimes, but you see, it's a long and short game, isn't it? Because it's a long game, and then you have your camp. Yeah. So you have to stay camp ready, even when you are not having that camp. And for some guys, they can't do that, because you can't hurry up and wait. It's all that, isn't it? You're waiting. Now we've got a camp, and it's this many weeks.
Yep.
So, but you need to stay focused the whole time, because it could happen at any time. So he just couldn't do that, and it's such a shame.
Oh, and listen, I get it. Tacos are good, but you got to make a decision. Now, this brings me to this gentleman. We talked about this, and he's not even done fighting, but I still believe he's going to go down as a huge disappointment. And this is the reason that he's a disappointment to me right now, is because of the bullshit that he pulled this past year, right? With all of this, let's put a log jam into all of this with a lawsuit that was so unnecessary. All it did is prolong any of this stuff, the inability to make money, the inability to stay relevant. He did it to himself. And for me, I don't even think it was so much him. As many times as he's given us wonderful clickbait, lovable clips, his dad is one of the worst things that Devin Haney can have around him. I'm telling you, and Frank, argue me on this anytime you want, brother. Leave your kid alone. Plain and simple. Because Devin Haney should be and has the talent to do so, but he's a disappointment.
Yeah, the thing is that, boxing is still mano a mano, whether it's male or female boxing. I'll use those two words, and if you're seen to be, the no mask thing is, that's still prevalent, and that's what we've got here. This is, I don't want anymore. And, early on when I talked about, we didn't think he had the taste for it. That's what it seems to be here. I don't think I have the taste for this. And as soon as I have a reason, then I'm going to use that, because I'm not sure that I really have the cojones for this. Now, part of me is thinking, well, it's a dangerous sport, and you're going to be frightened every time you get in that ring. And it's a confidence sport. We know that. So, I can understand when people say, that's it now, but actually say, that's it now. I think I've done it now. I think that's it. I know I'm supposed to be at the top of my game, but I don't really. I'd have far more respect for him if he or his dad, or both of them, came out and said, you know what, we think we're done because it's not getting any easier and I'm getting a bit older, and really, I want to keep my faculties. But because he's pulling this bullshit, as you say, it just seems like he's running like that. He must have finally developed calves, because he's running all the time.
There's a part of me that believes that Bill Haney, the father of Devin Haney, possibly, much like a lot of these guys, and here's a topic that I want to discuss coming up as well, and I'm going to throw it out there, and I'm going to talk about this. I want to talk about the father-son duos in the world of boxing, the good ones and the bad ones, because there's been a number of them. And this, I believe, is one of the bad ones, because part of me believes that Bill maybe wanted to be a boxer himself and couldn't do it. And I think that that's what you have a lot of the times with these dads, just like moms grow little girls to be something that they couldn't be. Dads do the same thing to little boys. And I think that this is what's happened in this situation. I could be completely wrong, but I don't care. I'm going to say it. Because Devin Haney doesn't come across as a guy who's got the same kind of fire for fighting that his dad does. His dad has more fire for fighting. So I think that this is a topic that we're definitely going to get into, because we can talk about the Mayweathers, we can talk about the Furies, we can talk about the Haneys, we can talk about the Garcias. There's a lot of them out there, Steve Swift. Holy shit, I think we might be onto something with this.
And let's do this around the time of the Chris Eubank Jr. and Conor Benn fight.
100%.
Because actually,
which is coming up in what, next week, 2 weeks, something like that?
2 weeks, isn't it? And not so much on the Chris Eubank side, because actually he is a gentleman who has made a split. But for Conor Benn, absolutely. I want my dad to see me. That's the way it feels. That might not be right, Conor. And I know we talk all the time. But I don't want you to come back at me, Conor. But the thing is, that's the way it feels. So yes, he's not getting good advice, and you're right. It does seem as though this should be a kind of family business,
right?
And so if you need to do this, well, I don't like being hit in the face.
Yeah, and not everybody does. Here's somebody that really didn't like getting hit in the face because there was way too much hype on it. This man right here was supposed to be the next Floyd Mayweather. Junior, of course, not senior. Adrien Broner was set up to have all of the success in the world, it seemed like. Floyd himself, was grooming this kid to be the next thing. He was going to be the next Floyd. But there's a part of me, knowing what we know about Floyd Mayweather, that makes me believe that was all a stick in the spokes, because Adrien Broner did not have that success that everybody thought he was going to have. And then Adrien Broner ends up with Don King. And that, boy, I don't know what it is. I don't know how it is, honestly, that Don King has been able to maintain relevance inside of the world of boxing for the years that he has and destroy so many people's careers, Adrien Broner included. Tell me about him.
Only in America, Tidster, only in America. Now, the thing with Floyd Mayweather is Junior is that this is what I call the Oscar curse. Because, you know, you give somebody, we have a thing in Britain also called the Mercury Music Prize. You win it, you're never heard from again. So, you know, or it's law of diminishing returns, you know. So that's what happens. You say, I'm giving you the rub. And so everyone says, well, should be a huge success then. Think about Adrien Broner. I was doing my hair earlier because I love the way that he used to get one of his entourage just to primp his hair, just to get it up. That's nice. And great talent, and you know, so difficult to fight against, and so audacious. That kind of sideways stance. What? Who does that? Well, Adrien does that. Who does that? That's extraordinary. But so difficult to fight against. But had the entourage and had the money Mayweather entourage before he had the money. And that's what happens to you when you believe that hype and you believe what Mayweather's saying, perhaps. And, you know, you believe that you're there already before you are there. That's what happens. Then you don't want to do the work because you think, well, I'm already there, actually. This is a guy who thought the business of boxing was actually the boxing of boxing.
Yeah.
That's dangerous.
Yeah, I think that, you know, we've heard the saying so many times before, and I think this is a perfect example where it's hard to put on cotton when you're sleeping in silk. So it means, you know, it's hard to get out there and put in the road work when you're already like, oh, it's so comfy in my nice bed that I have here. But the problem is Adrien Broner went out and bought that bed, and he bought those sheets before he had the ability to kick back on it. Watched too many Rocky movies, in my opinion. You know, should have been out there putting in the work first and then reaping the rewards. He wanted to reap the rewards before and without putting in any work. And you can't do that in the world of boxing. Sorry. I don't care what Don King has told you, you know, and that's why Adrien Broner ended up where he is. I'm completely convinced nobody in the world of boxing, you know, at this day and age should feel like they even have to do any kind of work with Don King. Now, he's done a lot of things for a lot of people in the past. I get all of that, but the world of boxing has moved on. Could you imagine if Adrien Broner had been smart enough to not get hooked up in that situation, what he could have become? He could very well have been the next Floyd Jr. We talk about that sideways that sideways stance, which is really just a more exaggerated version of that Philly shuffle. You know, it's just throwing that shoulder out in front. He just kept it out there the entire time. And that was one of those things that I think that where you saw Adrien Broner was very like compared to a Floyd Mayweather, was they had a very similar style of defense, but Adrien Broner made his defense more of his offense. And it was really easy to kind of figure out when the dude just stood there and let you beat on him. That's a problem in boxing.
Yeah, didn't want to put the work in. Clearly, you know, as you say, could have done if he'd put the work in. He had the talent. We believe. Don't know, but and this is the sad thing, isn't it? That we make allowances for people early in their careers because we think you've got all the talent. This is the Boots Ennis situation, isn't it? You've been waiting for this to happen. And if Boots hadn't done it this time, you still probably would have come back to me and said, it's going to happen sometime, Steve. Shakur Stevenson's the same thing. But, you know, we think you've got the talent. We're going to wait. We boxing fans do that. But I can't remember which fight it was. It seemed so cursory. Adrien Broner came down with his entourage and they all had hands on each other's shoulders. I can't remember which fight this was. And they ran in.
When they were imitating the Hoist Gracie train that they used to do in MMA. I don't think it wasn't the Pacquiao fight. I know that. Maybe it was the Mikey Garcia fight.
I think it was that. And then afterwards, just ran out again. So it's almost as if actually the entrance and the exit are the important things here. That's the business of boxing. What happens between the ropes? Yeah. But, you know, we'll make and he did make an effect because I'm still talking about the bloody thing, but in a terrible situation now, has to keep fighting because people have reported because of his entourage and all the rest of it and pick up some fights. No reason for him to. Terrible.
Adrien Broner could very well go down as being the the wrestler of boxing, the ram of boxing. We've all seen the story. We've all seen the movie, The Wrestler. And if you haven't, go out there. It's basically a story about 5 different, wrestlers' lives all put together into this one amalgamation of just this wackiness. But Adrien Broner could be that guy, because Adrien Broner could be that guy that you're sitting next to in a bar one day and he's telling you the story about how he fought Manny Pacquiao, but he's just stopped in here for a quick sandwich because he's performing on the 3:00 show at the bingo hall before they, break out the dinner for the old folks, because he needs the $75. That's a sad state of affairs in the world of boxing, man.
Yeah, you can't have your entourage before you have your account nailed down. You can't. And that's unfortunately the way it seems to me. It might not be the case, but that's the way it seems to me with Adrien Broner. So sad.
Absolutely. Steve, as always, I mean, these are the discussions that I enjoy having. And I think that there's a couple of them that we have coming up, and I want to put these topics out to you because we were talking about different topics coming up. I love the idea of doing the father and son thing. We're going to do that one probably next week. That might be a good idea to lead into that. But then I want to talk about another thing. And with our talks with this, it's kind of led me to believe, we talk about history and we talk about the history of boxing and where boxing is really popular, but where it became notable. Britain has a fantastic British boxing system. You've seen a number. I mean, it's kind of like the birthplace, it seems like, right? The United States, unbelievable. Mexico, a history of boxing. These fighters coming out of this European bloc is unbelievable as well. And then it got me to thinking, where I live, I am not a Canadian, but I do live in Canada. And you think about it, there's not been a whole lot of famous boxers coming out of Canada. Now, probably one of the toughest boxers in all of boxing ever happens to be Canadian. I'm talking about Arturo Gatti. But outside of that, you've got a Jean Pascal, you've got a Lennox Lewis, I mean, Tommy Burns. What are we talking about here? There's not a lot. So I want to have a discussion one of these weeks where we talk about how the country and how the culture of the country breeds into this sport. I think that's a good conversation to have.
I was just going to put my 2 pence in about why Canada might be in that situation with boxers, and Lennox Lewis is English. Let's just make this clear. So
it's another thing you're trying to steal, you sons of.
Yeah. Well, that's how we built our empire, allegedly. So I want to discuss that. Absolutely, you're quite right. The culture of the country really affects the boxing. You're quite right. You've done it again. Yeah, marvelous.
Fantastic. Steve, as always, it's been a pleasure. Enjoy the rest of your evening. Have fun covering. What are we covering?
I'm covering the band DeWolf, Double F. You might not know them in Canada. They're not out of Holland. They're Dutch. They're a kind of.
I'm out. Nope. Never trust the Dutch. That's a rule of mine ever since a child. Never trust the Dutch.
Tulips, Edam, DeWolf. That's it. Johan Cruyff. Come on. They're a kind of 1970s throwback.
Okay.
1970s rock, but actually they become more 1970s soul. It'll be a packed place. It's in a very nice florid room, but it's going to be hot and sweaty. I will wear the ascot, thank you, but I might not wear my beautiful jacket.
Well, one thing you got to remember, Steve, is that if you do go there, hopefully a fight doesn't break out, because that happens in bars and that happens at these events. I mean, hopefully people will look at you and realize, I don't want anything to do with that. I will get messed up here. But in case it does happen, Steve, just remember one thing you got to do: tuck that chin.